our oneness is now one.
We must open our marriages to spiritual audit.
Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to Coupled with Kez and
Nez. Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah, you're welcome back, and I hope it's been refreshing for you this season as we look at the pillars for a thriving marriage. We started off talking about spiritual intimacy, but before we get into what we have for you today, we are so grateful always for you. We thank God for you, and we constantly pray that everything that we're saying here, it would make sense. The Holy Spirit will make it make sense to you.
Yes.
So what have you been waiting for? Seeing you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. Share with your friends. If you're a child of God and you just see this as something that really is helping you on your spiritual journey, please share. And even if you're feeling like, oh, I just stumbled on this and I love it, we love it for you too. Share. So thank you so much, everyone, babe.
Let's get the word out.
Okay, so we're going into the next pillar today, and we're talking about communication.
Yes.
Yeah, so communication, because for
the lifeblood of any relationship.
Any relationship, really, because like we know, would we say what we learned in school, they will tell you how they will put sender A and the recipient on the other side, and what happens, the encoding, decoding in between before it gets to that person. But as we know, communication has only happened when whatever you intended to pass across in form of information or whatever it is, once the recipient gets it, is decoded rightly. First is encoded rightly and is decoded rightly by the other party. So when that other person has not interpreted it the way you have sent it, communication has not been effective.
Very true.
Yes, and effective communication is one of the lifebloods, like you said, for a thriving marriage. And then we already know there's verbal, non-verbal communication and all of that. But yes, all these things, any way you're passing your information or doing whatever it is that is perceived as, wanting to pass a message or yield a certain kind of result, the other person must understand what you are saying.
Very true. Like I repeated earlier, communication is the lifeblood of any relationship. If you are not talking, you are dying.
Professor is back again. If you are not talking, you are what? You are dying. And I know, I'm serious. Like, it just like hits me like, if you're not talking, you're dying, which is very true. If we don't understand, if we are not communicating, if you just stay on your own, you start to die, because you're not learning anything new, you're not hearing anything, you're not passing, you're not giving, you're not receiving.
Like you said, there is verbal and non-verbal. If you're not talking, you are dying.
Sure.
Plants give out carbon dioxide.
We take in the oxygen,
and then they take in carbon dioxide and they give off oxygen. We take in oxygen and we give out carbon dioxide. So there is non-verbal communication going on. There is an exchange, but it's just that it's not with words.
True.
But when it comes to relationship, the richness of any relationship is the depth of words, the measure of words that have been exchanged. Now, it's now the quality of the words that will determine the richness. We can be rich in strife because of the quality of words that have been exchanged. Or we can be rich in
peace and love,
because of the quality of words that we've been able to exchange.
That's so true.
Communication is so critical. There was no way I was going to be sitting beside this beautiful, virtuous woman if there was no communication. Like I told you earlier, I spoke to her the first day, spoke to her the second day, third day, and I told myself, this is it. What was the key to determine that this is it? It was communication.
And then, just on the communication and the other party understanding what you are communicating.
Yes.
Because when people say, marry me or whatever, what did you really hear? I can hear marry me as meaning build with me, collaborate with me, be my companion, let's do God's assignment together. Or I can hear marry me to mean, let's just come and put a ring on it and just answer, be married. And that would determine how, because if I heard build with me, collaborate with me, work with me, let's do God's work together, that's what I heard, that's what I received, and that's what I will start to run with. But if what I heard or I interpreted marry me to mean is different, that's the same thing I'm going to play out, because we're all playing out what we understood by what we are doing together.
Oh, sure. Sure. So let me ask, babe. So the truth is this. How has communication been for us? I think it's best we've defined it. I mean, I like textbook definitions, but when we get down to the nuts and bolts, it's important we understand what it really means to us. I will share before I start. I will just give it one of the first shockers when we got married. I remember the first day when we got married, or not the first day, some few days after we got married, I remember was an exchange, and my wife said, "You said this." I said, "I did not say it." He said, "You said this." I said, "I did not say it." He said, "You are lying." That was the day. That was day. I couldn't believe that she said I lied.
Because you just couldn't believe
livid.
that you would lie.
I was livid. That I lied? I said, "No, this is not what I said." But you know, as we went back and forth, and over time, that died down. I mean, this was the first day. And let me tell you, sometimes you might just prepare. The first day of marriage, it's a time you really try to understand each other. But after a while, and I tried to stay open, and I told myself, could it be that I thought I said something and I said something different? And what happened that day, and trust me, it's not that things have changed, because last week again she said, "Babe, you said this." But you know what has changed? I did. And guess what I built into my consciousness is make room that there could have been a possibility that you said it and you can't remember you said it. And trust me, it has brought peace. It didn't create the fracas that we had those many years ago that this was first said.
Yeah, so with so for you, maybe me saying, "Oh, you're lying about this," what you probably heard was, "I don't have integrity.
Yeah.
I'm not an honest person.
Yeah.
I don't keep to my words."
Yeah.
As against that, "Oh, in this particular situation, maybe I act," because when we say a lie is what is not true, right? But I understand.
I think maybe it's the intention. When we look at a lie, before we can establish a lie, there needs to be an intentionality behind what is being spoken or acted out, before.
Yeah, so maybe that was what you heard then, and that was
in fact, she captured it. You don't have integrity. You are not truthful. Oh, I was livid. I was livid that day. But I stepped back and said, we're humans. We can think we said something. And an interesting thing, I found out that at work too, somebody said, "This was what you said." And I sat back, I said, wow, my wife said this at some point. But I could have also gone and told them I didn't say it and be vehement about it. But the truth is that if one or two people are saying you said something and you can't remember saying it, guess who was at every crime scene? You. And so sometimes we have blind spots where we need to step back and say, I could have said it. And like someone would say, it's not a tear shed matter. It's not fundamental. Yeah, maybe we're human, we missed, okay, maybe I said it.
Yeah, and you asked the question about, for us, how is communication? I think for us, communication has evolved over time.
Yeah.
And it gets better because that's the whole idea, right? So as I understand you, when you communicate, I'm able to relate with you from that place of understanding. I understand if you say something, I understand the spirit behind what you're saying, and I'm able to, so I'm able to say, okay, this is, it's growing, it has grown over the years.
Absolutely.
So we're not easily having a lot of issues around communication, because we now have a better understanding of each other.
Understanding is fundamental. Listen, can I say something? You don't hear as is. You hear as you are. I will tell you a story. I think it's in Mark 8 or Mark chapter 6 this happened. The disciples of the Lord, they entered the ship. They had just finished feeding 4,000 people, I think. As they entered the ship, the Lord told them, beware of the leaven of Herod and of the scribes and Pharisees. And guess the next thing they responded? It says, because we didn't carry bread. You know, it's with leaven that you make bread. So the next thing, they said, speaking amongst themselves, we didn't take bread. And the Lord turned to them and said, why you? Is it what connects what I said
with what you are thinking?
With what you're thinking. Because that was what was uppermost in their minds. Because after they fed the 5,000, what did the Lord tell them? Gather the fragments that remain. But this time around, they did not gather it. So when the Lord told them, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, what do you use to make bread? Leaven. And the next thing they said, it's because we did not take bread. And all of a sudden, the Lord told them, why are you people like it? How does not carrying bread connect with leaven? So we see how we can miscommunicate. We so misunderstand communication. The Lord is trying, somebody is trying to pass on something, and we completely misinterpret it based on our recent past.
Yes, and like you said, based on from our own how we are or how we are perceiving things, or how even sometimes how we even see ourselves, right? So if I've gone through a series of rejection, depending on my childhood or how I grew up, the chances that when my husband says no, I see it as he's rejecting me.
Spot on.
So I just see it as, rejection. Why is he saying no? Maybe he doesn't, because that's the lens from which I view life. So anything anybody says is interpreted from how I am viewing life.
I'm not marketing him, but one of the best books I've read, one of the best non-Christian books I've read is the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's one book I still go back to read every now and again. Right now I'm on the first chapter. But one of the things I saw again that Stephen Covey wrote about was, we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are.
Yeah.
There is a paradigm there's a lens from which we view our world. There's a lens from which we do what? From which we perceive what is being said to us. And that self-awareness is the first step to beginning to understand, this person may not mean this.
Yeah.
And then you now begin to create what I would call benefit of doubt for people, especially your spouse.
Yeah.
So that issue of understanding, all these things we said can be summed up in one word: understanding.
Yes, understanding. And as you said that, it just brought me also to something that has been in my mind for the longest time, and I don't know whether the tag I've given it is the best, but I call it the storyteller's dilemma. We always tell stories in our minds, right? So like we said, you've said something. The disciples, all they did in that moment was start to tell a story in their mind that was not even, could be true, may not have been the intention, could not have been, but they were just, and then it will start informing your actions. Because if I sit back and you have said something to me and I start to tell myself a story in my mind that it's rejecting me, then I start to say it's because I did not do, or because I am this, or because this and this happened. And then before you know it makes you start also taking an action based on the story you have told yourself, which may not even be true.
Because you've been in meetings, so you've not been part of our family devotion. One of the things we've been talking about, you call it the storyteller's dilemma, I call it the soul monologues. We have what we call soul monologues. We talk to ourselves. There's a king in the Bible. We talked about him during our devotion, and it's so interesting. There's a king in the Bible. His name is Jeroboam. I'm sure if you're a Bible scholar, you read your Bible, they talk about the sin of Jeroboam. Where did the sin of Jeroboam start from? A soul monologue. God had promised him, you're going to be king. You will be king. I'm going to take 10 tribes out of Israel from the house of David, and I'm going to give it to you. And if you will obey me, I'm going to establish your kingdom. I'm going to make you king. And finally, he became king. After Solomon died, because when Solomon heard the prophecy, Solomon wanted to kill him. When Solomon's son Rehoboam took over, Jeroboam was like a union leader. He was a labor leader. So he took the rest of the house of Israel and they went to the house of David and they told Rehoboam, please, your father Solomon, he literally broke our backs just to build Jerusalem and build Israel. So we needed to lighten our burden. And Rehoboam, true to type, after talking to the old men, he didn't take their counsel. He went to his younger contemporaries and came back and told them, my father used cane, I will use scorpions. And that was when the famous expression, to your tents, O Israel, came. So Jeroboam became king. But the snag was that the temple was in Jerusalem and it was under the control of the house of David. And so I'm sure Jeroboam woke up in the morning and see people. There were no branches. There was only one temple where people could worship. And so when people said going, Jeroboam was like, no way. And Bible said, Jeroboam said in his heart, he said, as these people are going here, I'm paraphrasing, they will end up, their hearts will return to the house of David and they will kill me. You see how he has arranged the events in his mind, the storyteller's dilemma. And you know what he did? He created an alternative temple, an alternative worship, an alternative priesthood. And
that even wasn't what God had designed for him in his reign.
Never, ever. But you see the storyteller's dilemma, that communication with yourself that is not founded on the word. That makes you think everyone is an enemy. Some people have turned down their homes because of this storyteller's dilemma.
Sure.
Viewers, beware of the storyteller's dilemma.
Beware of it, because in communication, like we've been talking about, some things will be said. And I know that, yes, sometimes people would say, oh, so say what you mean, I mean what you say. We always say that, and truly we should as much as possible encode what we are saying in a format that is decoded, that can be decoded by the person who is receiving it. But just in case it's not, as encoded as you would want it to be, always make room. Like you said, just always make room. Step back and say, give all the other possible scenarios of how that thing could have, what that thing could have meant before taking an act. And where in doubt, why don't you ask? So reconfirm. When you say hello on the phone and somebody is saying something, say, please, can you come again? Like, you really want to, please, can you explain again? Oh, did you mean this? Let the person be clear, in what they are saying. Let the communication be very clear. So, and you too, that they're asking you to come and again and say what you're saying, be as clear as possible. Somebody is seeking clarity, give them clarity. Give them clarity.
Tempers can get high. Bible said in the book of Proverbs that grievous words stir up anger. I recall you mentioned something from James chapter 1 verse 19. It says, therefore, my brethren, it said, be quick to hear
and slow to speak.
Slow to speak. Let every man be slow to speak, quick to hear, and slow to anger. For the anger of man doesn't work the righteousness of God. So I think that's a foundation of communication.
Yes, we're going to talk about, and I felt like Ephesians chapter 4 really has a lot of snippets into how communication should be.
Maybe we should go.
I think in the next episode we will focus on that. But like you said, the art of listening. To be a great communicator, you must be a great listener. Because you have to listen. You have to really listen to what is being said to even be able to give a response. Because if you are just, like we said, if you already have a story you have told yourself, the thing will not even land. You will already give a response.
There's a reaction.
You already give a response.
This is what you are planning to do.
Yes. I remember as we wrap this up, we hung out with a couple of friends at the New Year, and then we were having this game thing that we were doing, and they were asking questions. And I remember a question that was asked. We didn't even wait to hear the end of the question. We gave an answer, and somebody who knew the right answer was already ticked off. Like, can you just hold on? Let's give the And then, or sometimes something is being said, you didn't even wait to hear. You just say pass. Like, well, you may have known the answer, you may have. So you need to be really a good listener for you to be a great communicator.
Wow, storyteller's dilemma. I love the sound of that. All right, so thank you once again for listening and viewing us. We'll see you next time as we continue on communication.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.